Yeah, the reason that I joined the military is really family history. You know, my dad joined the Army back in the 1960s, and he was in the 3rd Infantry Division, and he served honorably for many years. I had an uncle who served in the Korean War and unfortunately was killed in action. And I also had another uncle who served honorably in Vietnam and served 3 tours. So there was a long history of family pride with regards to the military, and it was something that I always wanted to do. I was always the kind of kid that wanted to be a part of a team or a group, or I loved the whole camaraderie idea. And so after I went to college, I knew it was something that I wanted to pursue, and I enlisted in the Rhode Island National Guard in 1993. And I chose to come in as an enlisted member because my father told me, you know, that's the way to start. You know, learn everything that you can from the bottom, you know, and work your way up. So I came in as an E4 and then eventually commissioned as a 2nd lieutenant. I joined right as it was happening because I remember when I went to MEPS and started filling out the paperwork, the first set of paperwork that I received still had the question, literally, are you a homosexual? And then somebody realized that the paperwork had not been updated, so they literally went around the room and crossed off that question. So I didn't have to necessarily answer it, but it was through that transition that I came in. So some of the paperwork was still asking the question, and some of the paperwork, you know, was no longer asking it because they couldn't ask. Still felt conflicted, but I didn't have to answer the question on the form, and I'm glad that I didn't because I don't know how I would have answered it, right? Because I really wanted to serve. I was disappointed that I would be essentially discriminated against or not be able to follow one of my dreams because of my sexuality, which, in my opinion, you know, has nothing to do with my ability to serve. It would be an understatement, you know, to say that I haven't witnessed significant changes. I mean, I've been in for 30 years now, obviously. I mean, I came in, you know, under the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, which, again, wasn't exactly what members of the LGBTQ community wanted, but understandably it was a compromise, you know, between Congress and President Clinton. So we were no longer banned, you know, but we remained silenced. And that's really difficult, and I don't know that people can truly understand how that impacts or the unintended consequences. Like, you can't be yourself, you know, at your unit. You can't talk about your partner or your loved ones. You can't talk about your family life. You can't bring anyone to family day, you know. Everyone assumes that you're just single when actually you're living this whole other life, you know, 28, 29 days out of the month, but these 2 days out of the month, in some respects, your silence is forcing you to be someone else, you know. So that's the compromise that we make, that I made. And, you know, I need to highlight that, you know, you could probably ask, you know, 10 members of the LGBTQ community who have served, and they're going to give you probably 10 different responses because we've all had very different experiences. I'm very fortunate. I consider myself to be very fortunate that I joined the Rhode Island National Guard. I'm very fortunate that I was a member of the medical detachment, you know, which historically is made up of folks in the helping community, which historically can suggest that they're more open-minded, much less, you know, critical of differences. And that was my experience, thankfully. I mean, apart from, you know, having to hide who I was and not share, you know, any aspect of my personal life. And the fear, you know, that fear of what's going to happen to me if they find out, you know, Rhode Island's a small state, you know. Gratefully, I always experienced a lot of positivity. You know, I have to probably back up and say, like, obviously I didn't come out, right, you know, but I always felt like I was in a safe place, you know, but, you know, regarding where the organization, you know, needs to go, or what work still needs to be done, of course, from my perspective, you know, it's easy. You know, we treat everybody with dignity and respect, regardless of their sexuality, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender. But I know that it's not always that easy. So efforts like this, I think representation is important. I think visibility is important. We didn't have that opportunity. You know, there wasn't a leader or a senior NCO for me to look up to or to take guidance from. And I hope that the Guard, as well as the community at large, just continues to do that. I think it's really visibility and representation, because whatever biases, fears, questions, concerns that people have, I think would be mitigated if you just got to know the person.